be responsible to yourself and to them and say no. Protect your peace like that. Hi, my name is Colleen Theophil, and this is Live a Life You Love, the podcast. I'm an emotional intelligence coach, and my job here is simple. It is to help you go from simply surviving to thriving by teaching you how to manage your thoughts and emotions, and then use that information to now create momentum in your life. We are continuing in our conversation, and we're winding down on this season. We have been talking about seasons. All puns intended. We have been talking about navigating seasons, so we went through a host of things. Today, I want to talk about a topic where somebody said, Cal, you tackle how do I start a season, right? How do I exit? But how do I deal with those tough seasons? And it is true, and we want to talk about it today. Seasons look different in our lives. So we have seasons, especially if we're comparing it to the natural sense, where that summer and spring is usually associated with happiness and lightness and life and new birth and growth. And then you have fall or winter that usually is associated with difficulty, with coldness, with the depth of things, with the changing of the tide that isn't always comfortable. And that is exactly how life is. You have these seasons where life is beautiful, you're excelling, you're focusing on new goals, you're getting that money, you things on a high, and then you have banger season, as we call it here in the Caribbean, where it rough. It is cricks and cheese on a Sunday because, listen, watermelon and flour right now, so you take what you can get, essentially. We have those seasons in our lives, and the week before we talked about the duality of life, where we're grateful we have something to eat, but I really wish it was a little more than cricks. All respect to cricks, of course. Today we want to talk about the tough ones, not summer or spring. We want to talk about when it's wet season whole time, man. It's pressure in the camp. How do you navigate tough seasons? Now, I'm going to preface it by saying I'm not going to give you tips to get out of this season. I'm sad to say. As a Christian, there's a scripture that's very sobering for me that says that God will be with you through the water and through the fire. And to the normal person, like, come on, yes, God is with me. I have a problem with the scripture verse. I don't want you to tell me that you with me through nothing. Take me out. You understand what I'm saying? I will get me out of here. But sometimes that's not life, where you are not going to get out of the season, but rather we are going to have to tunnel through it. So I'm not going to give us tips today to get out of a difficult situation, but how do I, in the midst of it, survive it? How do I, in the midst of a difficult season, actually thrive? My focus, because of course this conversation is very layered, but the focus I want to go from, especially from an EQ perspective, is giving you 3 aspects of peace that I want you to focus on. The first thing is I want you to be able to pinpoint in the middle of a tough season those things that disrupt your peace. Life done hard, papa, I beg. And then something will come along to disrupt your peace. It's easy in the streets, but we have to know what are those things that are our triggers in the middle of a season. Here's the challenge about tough seasons. You're already having a hard time, and then something comes along to add more fuel to the fire to make it worse. And sometimes those things that have been added is stuff that if you were paying attention, you could have eliminated. Do you know what are the things that disrupt your peace apart from the already difficult situation? So, for example, when you're in a tough space, there are certain personality types or certain people you can handle. So when I know I'm in a difficult space or in a difficult season, there are some conversations with certain types of people that I can't be around. So when I'm in that, I can't be around people who are naggy, where everything is, she can't, already given all I have, so don't nag me. So when you're in a difficult space, who are those disruptors that you know you need to limit or create some boundaries with? You just have to say, you know what? Now is not a good time. I can't have that conversation. So you have to know what disrupts your peace so that you are able to guard yourself against it or put up the proper boundaries. No, the reality of it is you cannot stay away from everybody. No man is an island as much as we'd like to be. We need community. So you can't lock off your mother. Is essentially what I'm saying. No, that's a whole maybe a conversation for another time. But you need to learn, there are some people you have to learn to coexist with. There are some people who think that we can't coexist with some people. We have to learn to coexist with the people in our space. It means if you can't cut somebody off, you have to learn to put the proper boundaries. Boundaries are not just to keep people out. Boundaries are created to protect you and what you stand for. So with disruptive people who have to be in your space, who you should still want in your space because they are valuable, this is where you create boundaries. So the first thing I want you to remember in the middle of a difficult season is figure out your triggers. Figure out those things that are disruptive to you. What behaviors, what environments make it a little difficult for you to tunnel through what you're going through so that you can be sensitive to it. So you don't think you're crazy. You don't think, why is it that I'm feeling so frustrated in this space? It's because it's something that disrupts your peace right now for different reasons. You have to remember in a difficult season, your emotions, while they may not be in control, some areas may be a bit heightened. You have to be mindful of that, and you have to be mindful that there are some things that will irk you a little more, that would trip you a little more. Knowing this also gives you the opportunity to control it. I know my triggers. So, for example, when I'm in a rough season, rude people also irritate me a little more than the average. I know that about myself. So because I know that, I prep myself and say, Kelly, just remember this will made up of rude people, so you don't need to snap every time somebody becomes rude. You learn to just allow it to slide off your back. You remember this person is of no importance to you. They're paying your bills. You're cool. You don't need to respond and say, well, I'm too young. I'll bring it out. You can just say, okay. You say good morning and you continue on your way, about your way, right? The second thing that I want you to do with where peace is concerned, so we talk about disrupting things that disrupt your peace. I want you to learn to create peace. Peace is something that you can create and that can be generated. And so, yes, there are some cases where you have to tough it out and things are not going to change, which I mentioned before, but you have to know how to, in the midst of it, create a space that feels safe for you, create a space that allows you to exhale. So my question to you and your homework for today is, what does peace look like to you? If you had to identify or describe peace, what does that look like for you? Describe it. What is the feeling attached to an environment of peace? So for people, somebody will say being on the beach, going somewhere to sit down and eat. What is it? When you can pinpoint your definition of peace, your duty is to find little ways to integrate it into your life. It may not be every day. It could be every week. You find ways to create a space that allows you to exhale. So, for example, for me, when I was going through a rough time between 2019 to 2021, my husband and I were going through a really, really rough time. We were almost newlyweds. We were coming out of the newlyweds phase, and life just hit us extremely hard. And with that hardship came a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear. I felt I was falling apart. With the falling apart, though, I had to generate peace. Things in my situation didn't change. I needed to change. So you know what I started to do? I started to paint. I am no artist. If you ask my Form 3 teacher, she told me at the end of Form 3, don't ever come back in this class. She said, you draw a stick man in my art exam. You understand me? Don't come back here. Despite that knowledge, I said to myself, I needed some creative avenue that didn't demand money. I needed to do that, and painting was that for me. So every Sunday, even though I am in a way better space now, I paint every Sunday because that's what peace looks like for me, where I'm able to be creative, I'm able to exhale, I'm able to just be me in that space. So what does peace look like for you? And your job is to create it. Integrate it in your life. It may not be every Sunday that you get to paint like me, but it could be once a month you decide to go to the park and relax. So whatever that looks like for you, do it. And then the last thing is, I want you to protect your peace. Life is going to try to challenge that peace that you've created. People will try to challenge it. Your responsibility is to make sure that things don't get past. So you have to learn when to say no to some things. No is one of the most powerful words that you will ever come into contact with. I am 100% sure I mentioned it before in other episodes. You have to know when to say no. When you're in a difficult season, you have to remember that you are not always operating at your optimal level, which therefore means if you're not operating at your optimal, you are not going to give the best that you could give, which therefore means you need to dress back if necessary. Be fair to yourself and be fair to other people. You want to give people the best that you have to offer. So that means if you're not in a position to do so, be responsible to yourself and to them and say no. Protect your peace like that. You remember I said earlier on, there's some conversations you should not be having. I was telling a client recently, I said to her, she asked me, how do I manage or deal with difficult people? And I said, I tell them very plainly, we're not having this conversation. It might seem blunt or rude, and I always make sure to watch my tone. We talk about that, to watch my tone and how I talk to people, because I'll never be disrespectful. But there are some people I very plainly say, we're not having this conversation because it is going to, as we say before, disrupt my peace. So to protect it, I let you know what that boundary is. So you have to care about yourself enough, be gracious, because we talked about it in another episode, gracious enough to want to protect what you're building, because the foundation that you're trying to build, it is already in a difficult climate. So your duty is to protect that peace. So navigating tough seasons, some of us will be removed from it. Some of us are going to have to go through it. While you go through it, your word is peace. I want you to remember the things that disrupt your peace. I want you to put effort into creating peace. And then the third thing, I want you to protect your peace. This has been Live a Life You Love. If this episode has helped you, do the right thing and share it with someone so that they can get their help too. So I am Kelly Theophil, and I will catch you on the next episode of Live a Life You Love.